So, what are the things in your life that are worth slowing down for, worth going deep and cultivating communities of support around? We tend to commit time and depth to the things that provide a lasting, positive result in our lives and in the lives of the people around us. For those things, we seek a deep and spacious container. Friends, welcome back to HeartScapes, where we're practicing the system of Reiki at the intersection of self-reflection, spiritual depth, and social action. My name is Michaela, and I am really grateful to have you back with me here in the studio today. I've been teaching the system of Reiki for about 6 years, and a couple of years ago, I started feeling a little bit of discontent with the teaching model that is common here in the United States and kind of in the realm of Western Reiki generally, which is to teach the system of Reiki in a series of 3 classes, levels 1, 2, and 3, typically offered over the course of a weekend. Sometimes a weekend for all 3 of those levels to be learned all at once. I've been teaching the weekend model for a number of years, and while quite a bit of depth and beauty and connection are born in those intense and focused weekends. And although we continue to support our students through practice circles and various other opportunities to connect and learn and grow together, it started to feel like too small of a container, a constricted space where so much depth and importance was crammed into too short of a time. This really intensified as we learned more and dug much deeper into the Japanese origins of the system, tapping into the long traditions that this system was born out of, traditions that have existed for much longer than the 100-year-old system of Reiki. All of a sudden, this weekend model felt like far too small a container to properly do justice not only to the system, but to the learning experience of the people walking through it. Because what we learned, what I really begin to felt deeply over time, is that the system of Reiki is something that gets deeply integrated into our life when we practice it consistently. And that form of consistent practice requires support, particularly in our modern lives with so many distractions, so many commitments pulling us in so many directions all of the time. It's a lot to expect a person to stay focused on a practice over a long period of time when they've only had exposure to it over a few weekends. And so over the past year, I've developed a year-long program, a spacious container that holds all of the teachings that we've put together, that we've developed, that we've drawn from the history of this practice, and puts them into a spacious, structured, and yet flexible container with strong community development and lots of one-on-one support for folks to journey through the entire system along with a community of support that can really help us to bring this practice into our lives. And I wanted to share with you, as we begin to launch our second cohort of this program in January, the top 3 results, the top 3 outcomes that I have experienced in my own life and in the students that I work with when we practice the system over time. And I wanted to share those with you just through some of the words of some of the folks that I've gotten a chance to work with. So I want to begin with emotional resilience. There are times in our lives, when things just get really hard, right? When our safety, our relationships, our comfort, our well-being might be threatened, possibly deeply threatened. And sometimes it can feel like it's just too heavy to carry all of that burden. There's a constricting that can happen during these times, and our resilience is tested. It can be really easy to slip into the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses that are there inside of us to protect us from overwhelming situations, but that can get us trapped into a situation where we're not able to respond to what is going on around us. Personally, I'm a freezer. Spent many years of my life freezing up, dissociating from the situation at hand when things got too overwhelming. It was a place that I decided I didn't want to live in anymore, and the system of Reiki has been a powerful pathway out of that response. Because one of the most powerful results of practicing Reiki over time, particularly from the perspective of its Japanese origins, is to build a deep and lasting emotional resilience. Over the years, I've shared many examples of this at work in my own life, and I've also witnessed it in my students time and time again. Students like Blair, who, despite being enmeshed in just such a challenging time in her life, decided to jump into the year program as a stable and spacious place of support, an island of security and clarity in the midst of this storm. Within the first few weeks of starting the year program, this choice began to pay dividends for her as she began to experience an increasing emotional resilience. In her own words, Joshin Kokyu-ho was a huge help to me. It was amazing how it took me from being triggered and shut down to being able to think clearly. This was a powerful reflection on the way in which the system of Reiki builds our emotional resilience. If you've ever been in a situation where you felt afraid, where there was very challenging things going on in your life, and you felt your ability to make clear decisions in the midst of that challenge fade away as the feeling of freezing, that feeling of hunkering down and constricting arose in your body, you can appreciate what a huge revelation this might have been for Blair in the midst of a really challenging situation, to find herself clear-headed and able to make good decisions. And because the structure of the year program allows her to slow down and to really feel and integrate what she's learning and experiencing, Blair knows that these dividends will continue to pay off in big ways as we move through the rest of the program together. Next, we'll hear from Jewel, who discovered the ways in which her Reiki practice seamlessly integrates into the rest of her daily life. This is the second major result that we observe over time as we practice the system of Reiki, the way in which our practice becomes part of us in the midst of life rather than separate from our day-to-day. Jewel says that Reiki was the missing piece that connected my ability to be in tune with my energy and to better understand how it works in my daily life, and then with my family and with life as a whole. Like many of us, Jewel's life is complex. On a daily basis, she is navigating and juggling her role as the mom to two teenage twins, her rewarding and yet challenging work life, her personal and professional relationships, and of course the need to slow down and care for herself. Jewel came to HeartScapes in 2018, seeking a pathway to deliver that care and rest to herself. And she quickly found that the benefits that she was experiencing in her own life through her practice were easily extended to her family, to the other people in her life without even her trying, right? We often think about sharing Reiki with other people as the practice of hands-on healing, of using our hands to share Reiki session with another person as a healing session. But what we find when we practice this system deeply over time from the perspective of its origins is that it's not so much about the moments when we're consciously sharing Reiki with a person that make the biggest difference in our life. It's the way in which we ourselves change from the inside out. We begin to move through our life differently, and that it is that has the greatest impact on the well-being of ourselves and the people around us. As a result of this revelation, Jewel has been a dedicated student with us ever since. This is because the system of Reiki is profoundly simple, elegant, and accessible. And inside of this elegant simplicity, we can weave it into the fabric of our lives in ways that have impacts far beyond the moment, ways in which we do not need to separate out our time with our practice, but rather bring it into every moment of our life. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the way in which the system of Reiki helps us to develop a sense of spaciousness, enough space inside of ourselves to hold complexity and to begin to open our worldview, to perhaps even shift our worldview into a more compassionate, expansive, and inclusive view. I want to hear from Sabina Morgan, who's been working with us again since about 2018. She says, I came here because I knew that this was a space where I could show up and have conversations that are difficult for me to have and to be supported in that. I stayed because of how deeply this community met me in that. This is such a beautiful reflection on the ways in which a practice like this works on us from both the inside and through our connection with other people. Feelings like fear, like anger, like anxiety can cause us to feel constricted, as if there isn't enough room inside of us to hold all that we are experiencing. We may feel a darkness or a confusion inside of us, and we might turn away from that, afraid that it's not something that we can handle or that we want to navigate. This might make us feel safer for a time, but it's at the cost of our wholeness, of our humanity. Sometimes communities can feel like this, can operate like this as well, when a group of people is unable or unwilling to make room for difficult conversations or the complexities of its members' humanity. Practicing the system of Reiki causes us to feel an embodied sense of spaciousness within ourselves and between each other, making more room to hold complexity, to hold difficult feelings, to hold conflicting information, right? To make more room for the paradoxes that exist in our lives and in the world around us. To meet each other with compassion in the midst of conflict. And that's a compassion that grows out of our deep and abiding compassion for ourselves. It grows a greater ability for us to connect across our differences. And as Sabina discovered during her time in HeartScapes, when a group of people come together and practice the system of Reiki with these intentions, the community that develops is spacious. It's firm and flexible enough to hold all of the complexity that a group of people will have when it comes together, to hold all of the humanity that's present. I built HeartScapes after a full and rewarding career in social justice leadership development. And I intended this to be a space that makes room for challenging conversations, for complex emotions, and the fullness of our humanity. I'm proud of what we've built here, about the ways that we continue to grow into this mission, and about the HeartScapes Reiki Academy year-long program that we launched last July. If you're seeking such a space to learn and grow into the wholeness of your true self, then we welcome you aboard the HeartScapes Caravan. The next cohort of the year-long program launches on January 15th, and we're in open enrollment period right now, which offers a $500 discount when you enroll by November 15th. I'd love to have more conversations with you if this is tugging at your heart in any way, to share answers to whatever questions may be up for you, and to share ways in which you can get a taste of this program before you commit to the full year. I'll put all of the information for that down below in the video description, and I look forward to the conversations that will flow. And as you move out from here into your day, wherever your journey takes you, may you be deeply provisioned for it. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, I love you. Goodbye.